Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host Tony Cañas, pitching the second of a double header today because I just recorded another episode. And for today's episode, I have with me Diego Tanton, founder and CEO at Invive. Diego, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
Thanks, Tony. Thanks. I'm doing well and excited to be here.
Awesome. So I usually break the ice over the weather. And just before we started recording, you were telling me that for now you're in Baltimore, but you're relocating to Minneapolis in July.
Yep.
So congrats. That's super exciting. Minneapolis is a beautiful area from July to October or so.
Oh, yeah.
And even October is pushing it. And then after November, it'll be a beautiful area to relocate away from. So what's bringing you to Minneapolis? Why did you decide to join Southern Canada?
Southern Canada. Yeah, so I mean, I recently, graduated from the Global Insurance Accelerator over in Iowa. GIA, yeah. So that was a super cool experience. Made a lot of connections over in the Midwest. And so I wanted to relocate over to somewhere in the Midwest because that's kind of where I've met a lot of people. And recently I've been looking at another accelerator in the Minneapolis area, On-Ramp Insurance.
On-Ramp,
yeah,
okay.
I've just kind of hit it off with some of the people in Minneapolis, like the startup community over there. So excellent. I was thinking, yeah, might as well. I kind of prefer Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities is slightly bigger than Baltimore, where I currently am, and I like a nice big city, so excited about it. Yeah.
So for those that don't know, GIA, or the Global Insurance Accelerator, out of Des Moines, Iowa, is fantastic, and GIA and On-Ramp are two of the accelerators that are willing to take startups, insurtech startups that are very early on, which makes them very unique. And they're just GIA is just a fantastic program. I'm not as familiar with On-Ramp, here's the fun part. GIA is 100 days, starting in January, right? So basically, you get to spend the winter in Des Moines, which is not as cold as Minneapolis, but it's pretty darn cold. So if you just finished that program, so you went through it with my brother, from my long-haired hippie brother from another mother. Zachary Tempesta. Yes, love him. Awesome.
Long-haired brother. Yep.
Yeah, my long-haired brother from another mother. Fun story. I met him at InsurTech Hartford last year. I guess at the same time as I met you. And then he called me a few months later to ask for advice, and I said, he's from San Diego. I said, are you going to ITC, in InsurTech Connect in Vegas? And he's like, oh, I hadn't looked at it. And I'm like, you have to go to ITC. And he's like, oh, it's kind of expensive. And I'm like, it is, but I have a room at the Luxor, which I booked for $40 a night, and I made sure to get 2 queen beds. I'm happy to split it. And then he calls me like 3 weeks later, and he's like, hey, if the room's still available. And yeah, so we were roommates for ITC. We're doing it again this year.
Are you doing it again? All right, it's a tradition.
No. So exactly, it's a tradition. I got back from ITC last year and got 2 emails. One of them telling me about ITC Singapore, and the other one telling me about the dates for this year's ITC. So I was so excited that I looked at going to ITC Singapore, even though I have absolutely no business reason to go. But flights in coach were $7,000. So I'm like, okay, not this year. And then the second email told me that ITC this year is on Halloween week, and I'm like, sold. And I went ahead and booked a room and texted Zach saying, hey, I got a room for next year. So you're going to
dress up even more this? Are you going to dress up even more now that it's Halloween?
I definitely want to. I definitely want to, exactly. We'll see. I'm still in the planning stages. So anyway, okay, so Diego, tell me, we always give the guest a chance to give the elevator pitch. What is Invive?
Yeah, so basically at Invive, we're bringing insights from the science of aging to reimagine underwriting for life insurance. So basically, the science of aging tells us that different people age at different rates. You might be 37 based on the calendar, but biologically, you might resemble someone who's a little bit older, a little bit younger. They say age is just a number, right? But in the past decade in particular, there's been kind of an explosion of research into the science of aging, in particular developing these so-called biological clocks that allow us to evaluate the biological age of individuals using machine learning applied to various biomarkers like blood biomarkers, more complex biomarkers. So at Invive, we're making this research accessible to life insurance underwriters. We've designed an AI model that delivers a highly predictive risk factor for medical underwriting and which doesn't overlap with existing guidelines that are in place. So we're able to use existing biomarker data that's actually already collected by life insurance carriers, and we then apply our solution in both the context of traditional and accelerated underwriting. So we can use biomarkers from either kind of underwriting. For people who aren't familiar, traditional underwriting, life insurance is a collection of fluids, IV blood collection. Yeah, and then you can also do accelerated if you get your hands on like electronic health records, or that's kind of where our technology is able to offer support on the accelerated underwriting side. In addition to that, we wrote a white paper recently. We found that our measure of biological age as a risk factor was slightly more predictive of mortality risk than smoking status and could significantly improve risk stratification among different underwriting classes. So we're excited about helping life insurance carriers bring their risk assessment to the forefront of science.
Okay,
it's an exciting area.
Super interesting. Life is a little bit slow compared to PNC.
Yeah.
This is a very, very, very interesting area. Okay, so for any listeners like myself who come from PNC, not from life, okay, so my understanding, and I know just enough about life to be dangerous, maybe a little bit less than enough to be dangerous, but my understanding is that traditionally, life has been underwritten largely based on actuarial predictions for how long you live, kind of modified by the medical results. And the underwriting process is like slow and painful, basically. Like literally, like have a nurse visit my home and take my blood, kind of thing. And it's just a pain in the butt to underwrite life, and it's not that accurate since it's based on kind of generalities. So this sounds revolutionary to me.
Well, so it's an advancement in kind of the risk assessment capabilities of a carrier, and anything even like incrementally more predictive of someone's survival timelines is going to be
You're on camera and we're recording, just so you know.
So I mean, even something incrementally better at predicting mortality risk will just improve a carrier's book of business financially tremendously in the long run. And then not even like mortality experience in the long run, but also if you can offer more competitive rates to individuals who are actually healthier than what traditional underwriting guidelines will tell you, then you have the ability to capture more of the market, and not just more, but also like a better portion of the market for your mortality experience as a carrier.
Okay. So, if I'm a traditional life carrier, how do I integrate this into my very long-tailed operation?
Right. Yeah. So that was kind of the thing that I had to think about a lot when starting this. The first step. So I met you like a month into starting this, basically at InsurTech Hartford, just doing kind of an intel of the industry, figuring out how it works. I don't really come from an insurance background. I've been lucky enough to partner with people who do have a kind of vast experience in insurance, but it was a lot about understanding the space. And I realized that one of the ways to differentiate ourselves from technologies that already exist for improving risk assessment was just to make it as easy as possible for a carrier to adopt it. So we're only operating at the level of risk selection. That means there's no kind of product refiling that needs to be done. We're only
Oh.
using, you know, yeah,
Okay, continue.
we're not using any biomarkers that are actually already used during the underwriting process. So there's a lot of biomarkers that are collected, and only kind of a small fraction of them end up in kind of being directly referenced in underwriting guidelines. The rest of them are mostly screened for abnormalities, it's like um, signals of disease. So we're actually using only those surplus biomarkers so that the risk factor that we produce doesn't overlap whatsoever with the underwriting guidelines that are already in place. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for a carrier to integrate.
Okay, not having to refile a product. That's
Hmm.
that. So I would think that there's, and again, I come from PNC, but I would think that there's three major problems with doing something new in life, uh, and in no particular order. One of them, regulatory, having to refile a product, right? And so it sounds like that one's not a problem. So that's a huge win. Number two, it is uh, IT system integration. So we'll talk about that in a moment. And number three is we've always done it this way,
Yeah.
which is probably the hardest one, right? So we talked about the regulatory piece. So what does the integration look like? I'm a chief underwriter of a life company. This sounds really interesting. Sounds like a good competitive advantage. How do you integrate into my systems, or how do we integrate you into our process?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So just to back up real quick about the regulatory side, from the PNC space, there's more regulation actually on the underwriting side than in the life space. Surprisingly, you
Oh,
wouldn't.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of the PNC products are file and use, like auto, for instance. You have to file in every state before you use it.
Mm-hmm.
In life, you have to essentially abide by certain rules, making
Guidelines.
sure your underwriting guidelines aren't discriminatory and that kind of thing. But it isn't as rigid from a regulatory perspective. At least it hasn't been so far.
I
In
had no
terms,
idea.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. It took me a while to figure that out, talking to a lot of people, but finally I figured it out. From an IT integration side, we've designed what we have in a way that we can kind of work with different capabilities for carriers. So some of the carriers are more digitized than others. We allow our model to be accessed via an API. So if you just kind of want to plug it into your existing system, if you want to use a model that you're hosting on site, if that's easier for your IT requirements, then that's something that we also provide, kind of like a packaged version of the model that you can locally host. But yeah, we're just trying to make it as easy as possible to integrate. And so building that flexibility into the product offerings, I think, is a key component of what we're doing.
Okay. Okay. A bit of a random question. So just so you know, so where I'm going is, how do you come up with the idea? But work with me. Where are you from? Are you from Baltimore originally?
Yeah, so I kind of had a upbringing that moved around a lot. So my dad was in the military. I lived in a bunch of different states. I actually ended up living abroad in Barcelona, Spain for
That's
a few
exactly
years.
what I was curious about. Because, like myself, you have your IB diploma, your International
Yep,
Baccalaureate. I do
yep,
too. I got mine in Costa Rica. It's a Swiss program, and it is rare in the States. Like, I don't think I've run into anybody in my podcast, or like even in insurance conferences, that had their IB diploma. So you got that in Spain.
in Spain. Yep, and
Okay.
then, yeah, yeah, I got
Hablas español?
no perfecto, pero bueno,
No?
bastante.
Catalán?
Well, Catalan, no, definitely not. I'm a bit rusty in my Spanish, but definitely better than the Catalan.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so you get your IB diploma in Spain, and then you come back to the States. You go to Johns Hopkins for a bachelor's in molecular and cellular biology.
Mhm.
So, okay, that makes sense. It makes sense that you've been thinking about biology, aging, medicine, kind of thing. That makes sense. Okay, so how did it go from, like, I'm guessing when you got your bachelor's in molecular and cellular biology, you weren't thinking about life insurance.
No, but I've always been really interested in the science of aging because I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a paradigm shift in how we think about healthcare, and it's kind of where
Okay.
healthcare is going, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, we've grown up with this idea that healthcare is about treating diseases that appear, kind of reacting to them, whereas the science of aging, not only is it interesting on a conceptual level, understanding how different species might age at different rates and how you might affect the aging process in a human and slow it down, but it also kind of brings in this idea that you can start treatment of health before diseases start appearing, because aging is the root cause that kind of underlies all these diseases that later manifest themselves. So starting early is kind of the paradigm of the future, being predictive, focusing on building biological resilience. So that was kind of the framework in which I was thinking and got really into the subject. And then I got interested in insurance because, well, for a handful of reasons. One of them being that I think that true change in healthcare needs to be driven from the payer side. You can have a lot of really cool technology that you offer through, tech companies or through whatever, but if no one's paying for them, then you're going to have like a stratification by socioeconomic status where only people who can afford new technologies are able to pay for them. So if you really want to like bring wide-scale change in healthcare, I think you need to attack it from the payer side. So that got me interested in insurance more broadly. I saw life insurance as an opportunity for doing something immediate with kind of the skills that I had developed over my time at Johns Hopkins and working at the National Institute on Aging. I did a lot of like machine learning work, looking at blood biomarkers and how they influence age and survival, how they reflect over age. And so, yeah, I was basically figured, this is something that would be valuable for life insurance carriers to use, and something that they're not really currently using. Because there's a lot of cool research that's happening in an academic context, like an ivory tower, so to speak. But it's hard, it takes a while for that to trickle down into like life insurance. And so that was kind of my mission. And there's,
a while meaning
Yeah.
a century and a half, and when we get hit on the face with a shovel to force us to do it, basically. Like, we are a very
Right.
slow innovation industry.
But let me just say that the relationship of benefit here, on its face, it seems like the science of aging is benefiting the life insurance industry, but you can actually also turn it around. And if you have a model that's been validated and uptrained on all of the data, or say if you partner with a carrier and kind of train a model on data that they have access to, there's insurance carriers have so much data, lab results over time. And so there's an opportunity here to kind of build a model for use in longevity science that's way more valuable than any other model that's currently in existence, by kind of leveraging connections in the life insurance space and all this data that's available if you're working with carriers.
Absolutely makes sense to me. Fantastic. Okay, so you're just coming off of the GIA accelerator, and you're
Yep.
going into the on-ramp one.
So no, I haven't actually gotten accepted into that yet. So
Oh,
asterisk there.
You're moving
No,
to
okay.
Minneapolis either way.
I'm moving to Minneapolis, not for on-ramp insurance accelerator. I've applied to it. Hopefully, I get in. I'm just gonna show up on their doorstep, like, hey, I'm in Minneapolis now. But I wanted to move to the Midwest. Minneapolis seemed like a great city. I was making some good connections over there, and add to that, kind of the on-ramp accelerators over there. So that would be convenient. I'm presenting at the conference. I don't know if you're going to the on-ramp conference.
I have never been. Would love to.
Yeah, it's on-ramp insurance conference in Minneapolis. Don't know if it might be more life focused. I have to look.
Okay.
But yeah, you should check it out. I know the people from the GIA are going there, and yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I've done the GIS, which is the GIA conference, but I have not done the on-ramp conference. Hey, on-ramp people, message me. Not for this year, but maybe next year. I'd love to be there.
Gotcha.
Okay, awesome. So you've gone through one accelerator. According to LinkedIn, the company right now has 2 employees. So my question is, so for the listeners, how at what stage are you guys? Are you ready to deploy, or are you ready to do a POC, or kind of what's the current situation?
Yeah, so where we're at right now is, I guess, kind of how it is with startups, trying to do a bunch of different things at once. I'd say three major things we're trying to do in parallel. One is what you said, running like historical pilots, POVs, POCs with carriers. We're talking with a handful of carriers right now about setting something up like that would allow us to look at their historical data, generalize what we're doing, personalize it to their unique policyholder experience, and then apply it moving forward as an underwriting tool. So that's kind of, on the one hand, setting up pilots. On the other hand, number two, I guess, is building a team of talented individuals. So like you alluded to, there's two of us right now, me and John Warren. He's my chief distribution officer. I think you've had him on the podcast, actually. But yeah, so basically I've been trying to build a network of research scientists who, work in the biology of aging to essentially bring on, more scientific credibility, improve the model that we currently have, and yeah, just kind of take what we're doing to the next level. And then number three, to kind of complement those two things, is to also fundraise. So we're looking to raise a pre-seed angel round, kind of actually in the early stages of doing that right now. So hopefully all those things kind of coalesce together. It'd be great if they all kind of happen simultaneously, but that's what we're looking at.
Okay, so John Warren, who has been on my podcast, if I remember correctly, at the time he was just out of where was he at the time? So it was episode 316, which was a year ago. So lifelong life insurance executive who has been playing in the intersection between life and insurtech. Okay, yeah, and we talked about distribution in the modern environment and three different platforms. Awesome. I had no idea that he had joined you. That is very cool. I love that you're bringing in experienced people who understand our crazy industry, because
Right.
Deeply necessary in order to get any sort of foothold here. So that is super exciting for you. Great pickup there.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Awesome. For future founders who watch this podcast, how was your experience at GIA? And what kind of insurtechs do you think the GIA is a great fit for?
Yeah, I mean, it was super helpful for me. I would say if you're a new founder who's not kind of from the insurance space and you're looking to kind of immerse yourself and actually get a better understanding of what your customers, whether they be insurance carriers, insurance customers, what they want, it's extremely valuable to actually make those connections in the insurance space. And I think the GIA was an awesome catalyst for allowing me to do that. I'd say the GIA is probably the best fit for like early stage startups, like ideational stage to kind of like trying to get their first customer, because they really help on the educational side, help you throughout the ideational process. I think a lot of the founders there were looking for kind of first revenue. And so, yeah, it's less maybe like sales focused, like less like trying to get you new customers. It definitely does that, helping with kind of the companies that they're partnered with, that sponsor them, that invest in them. But yeah, I think especially for new founders who are looking to get a better understanding of kind of how the insurance space works, I thought it was an invaluable experience.
And there is nothing like spending January and February and March in Des Moines, Iowa.
So they're hybrid now. So I was over in Des Moines for 3 weeks in January to early February, and then I came back to Baltimore, which was slightly warmer, for kind of the interim period, and then went back over to finish up the last 3 weeks. Okay, so didn't have to be there the whole time.
Okay, so the most important question for any GIA grad, What's your favorite burger at Zombie Burger?
My favorite burger is Zombie Burger. What is Zombie Burger? Oh no.
You never went to Zombie Burger?
Maybe I did, but I didn't look at the name. They had like a what was it? Like a brewery that was connected to the GIA that had a lot of
Okay.
good food there. I don't know what it was called, but I had some good burgers there. Maybe that was. Yeah.
I'm gonna write Jason Gross and complain that you guys are not getting the full Des Moines treatment if you're not going to Zombie Burger.
I might have.
Okay. Did you try the crab rangoon pizza at Fong's?
Well, I feel like you need to help the new founders who go through the GIA
for
so that
real.
they.
I want to have to make a video about this. In fact, this is what I'm gonna do. I wanna create a video called "Hitchhiker's Guide to Rocking GIA," and it's actually gonna say nothing about GIA, and it's gonna be just like, hey, if you're in Des Moines for a few weeks at a time, you have to go to Zombie Burger. You have to try the crab rangoon pizza at Fong's, and yeah, those are the two most important things. Okay.
I did have some good food over there, though. There's a lot of good breweries over in Iowa. Yeah, so I had some good food, good drinks. I don't think I
I'm
went to
guessing
those. Nah.
Okay, I'm guessing that the seafood is and Tasty Tacos is the other one, but that one is not particularly popular. I'm guessing that the seafood in Des Moines is not as good as in Maryland.
Well, so I've always lived on the coast, so it was a little
Yeah,
weird
that's what I'm
going to a landlocked state and like seeing fresh seafood. I'm like, I don't know, do I trust this? Do I not?
No, never eat seafood in Iowa. That
Really?
is not fresh. It is just not fresh. I mean, yeah, maybe they flew it in this morning, but in that case, you're paying up the nose for it. Don't eat seafood in Iowa. It's a landlocked state, like in the middle of the country. Anyway.
I had sushi in Des Moines actually, and I was a little bit skeptical because of what we're talking about. But the whole time I was thinking the avocado in the sushi is so fresh because of like I was like, I guess that's the perks of having sushi in like a state that's known for agriculture. It was really good avocado in the sushi, so that was a plus. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been very interesting. I wish you best of luck in Minneapolis and
Thank you.
Hopefully on ramp. And look forward to having you back in a year or two once you're like deployed with a couple of carriers and
Yeah.
I think you're doing super interesting stuff. And I should have probably brought this up before like the very end, but I'm a big believer that and I'm not a scientist. Let's make that clear. My degree is basically in business, all of them. But based on what I've read, and by the way, thank you. I love that on Invive's website you list like 6 different books about the science of aging. I'm probably gonna pick up at least one of those.
Yeah, you should.
So for a non-scientist, which of the 7 is your favorite?
So I'd say Lifespan is the first one. That's by David Sinclair. Is probably the most accessible. Well, they're all
Okay.
accessible, but it's the most popular one
Okay.
that I listed there. What's most relevant to what I'm doing at Invive is The True Age by Dr. Morgan Levine. But I think Lifespan's a good read, so you should pick up that one if you haven't.
Okay. So the reason I bring this up is because based on what I've read, it seems to me like there's a chance, a fighting chance, that we are kind of at the cusp of significant life extension. And I love the possibility that the first 150-year-old or the first 200-year-old has already been born. I think that is fascinatingly, and the effects of that in the life insurance and annuity space. I think it's fascinating.
Imagine having 10 extra years, 20 extra years. Let's just say 10 extra years of like healthy lifespan, right? Not at the end of your life, but in the middle, right? So like stretching it out rather than adding it to the end. That would have huge impacts on just our way of life, what we do.
Everything.
You could re-educate and do
Yeah.
enter a new career at 50. I mean, people do that already, but like, it'd be more common. One of the things that I should mention about kind of, so yeah, I think we are at a stage that's very pivotal for this technology.
Okay.
One of the things is being able to validate the interventions that are coming out, right? So there's a difference if you're treating people who have cancer and you're able to see over a few year period whether that cancer goes away or lessens in its severity. But for longevity, it's hard to, I guess, test how effective an intervention is if your metric is how long someone lives, because that might take forever. That's very impractical. And so that's where the idea of having a model that accurately measures the rate of aging comes in handy, becomes very valuable. So if you have a model that can tell, or basically that says, hey, by using this intervention, you actually reduce someone's biological age by 3 years on average. And so that's kind of where we're looking to go as well with the modeling of biological age, and kind of how maybe the insurance industry could help the science of longevity, if we could kind of have our way in terms of developing the technology that could really impact the science of longevity. But I think it's very exciting. You're exactly right. You should definitely take a look at some of those books.
I just checked it out, and Lifespan and True Age are both available on Audible as audiobooks. Yep. I didn't check the rest, but that's very exciting for me. So I am a recently turned 40, actually like 40 and a half. I'm a 40-year-old, largely carnivorous male who doesn't eat any vegetables and doesn't exercise at all. If along the way, and I would love to live to like 120. So if along the way you run into anything that doesn't require me to exercise or to eat well, that is likely to lead to extra quality of life for the next 30 or 40 years, I'm game.
Well, that's what the science of aging is all about. That's what the science of aging is about, because we already have a mechanism for lifespan extension, and it's to eat healthy, work out, do all the things that your parents tell you to do, that the doctor tells you to do. The problem is it's impractical to have, not everyone's going to do that, in other words. So the science of aging basically democratizes that lifespan extension, which is already available. It's just, hard and not realistic for everyone, and people are busy and, stressed out.
I'm a Diego fan. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
No, I've enjoyed it.
Will you? So you didn't go to InsurTech Hartford this year, like you did last year. Okay. Are you heading to InsurTech Insights in New York?
Yep.
I will see you at InsurTech Insights, and I'm guessing at ITC Las Vegas for Halloween.
Yep.
Awesome.
I'll look for you.
Thank you. Thank you
Great
so much
chatting
for your
with you.
time.
All right. Thanks. Talk to you later.